Like it or not, you're being watched. They are tracking your every move, everywhere you go, every purchase you make, in person, but especially online. I'm not talking about the CIA or the FBI, but rather your friendly neighborhood retail store, and is making everything from tools to electronics to groceries more expensive. They know what you buy, when you buy, they know how much you spend, and tons of other information about you. Retailers are building profiles on all of us, and Walmart was recently awarded patents for AI tools that will predict demand and set prices across its platforms. And they're even installing digital price tags in their stores so that they can quickly change prices in accordance with the data that they're collecting. Now, there is something that already exists called dynamic pricing. This is what airlines and hotels use. When a flight is empty, the price may be low to encourage people to buy, but as tickets are sold and demand goes up, so does the price. Same thing with hotel rooms. If you try to book a hotel in Park City during ski season or one in Florida during spring break, you're gonna pay more, a lot more in some cases. In fact, whenever I'm on a flight, I always wonder what the person next to me paid. Did they get a better deal than me, or did I get a better deal than them? Who knows? Now, we all just kind of accept that from airlines and hotels as just a fact of life. But it also pops up in a few other places from time to time as well. Uber has surge pricing. Concerts and sporting events can also have dynamic pricing. But it isn't a pleasant feeling knowing that there is a lower price out there and you're not getting it. Now, why would companies do that? Well, in industries with fixed inventory like airlines and hotels, this strategy is really aimed at maximizing occupancy by lowering prices when seats or rooms are unsold. Then when they know that there's going to be a lot of demand, they raise prices in order to maximize profits. And that's really what it comes down to, maximizing profits. But it gets worse than that even. There is a retail strategy that's gaining speed called surveillance pricing. This is when a company uses your data, whatever data they may have, to build a profile on you and then determine based upon that profile how much you're willing to spend on an item, and then they price that item accordingly. Now, what does that mean in practice? Well, it means that the price that I may see and pay for something is not the price that you may see and pay for something. In the past, this kind of activity would have been impossible. But today, with new AI tools, it's actually pretty simple for retailers to do this. In fact, Kroger, the grocery store, was caught doing exactly this. A Consumer Reports investigation found that Kroger stores collected extensive customer data and then used that data to make detailed inferences, like creating an income predictor for certain customers. And if they determined that you had a higher income, then they would not give you the same discounts that other people got because they figured you'd be able to pay it and they would make more money. Now, I'm curious if this is something that you've ever seen, if this is something that you've experienced yourself. Leave me a comment and let me know. Now, normal price theory is based upon supply and demand. If demand is higher, prices may go up. If supply is low, prices may go up. And it works the other way as well. And prices can come down when demand is low and will come down when supply is high. In this new world, though, each person has their own individual demand curve. But it isn't supply and demand that determine the price that you're willing to pay, but your income and how much you want or need something. A new parent, for example, needs diapers, and if a store knows that, they know that they're a new parent, they may actually charge you more for those. So how does this surveillance pricing work? And how do they get your data? Which retailers, in addition to Kroger, are implementing surveillance pricing, and how can you protect yourself? Well, we're going to answer all of those questions, but before I get into those details, I want to tell you about this video sponsor, Electric e-bikes. So spring is just around the corner. The snow is melting and the birds are chirping. It's a great time to start thinking about how you want to spend your summer. For me, I plan to take bike rides and picnics with the family on my electric e-bike. I love this bike. It's so fun to ride, and with its big battery, I can ride for hours on end without worrying about my charge. There are so many great features with this bike. It folds up neatly so you can easily store it, and they have tons of accessories that you can add, like this buddy seat. I've been taking my daughter to school each morning and she loves it too. Wherever you live, whether it's in a neighborhood, in the city, or in the country, electric e-bike would be great for you. So check them out by using the link in the description or the QR code on the screen. And if you order your new electric e-bike using my code DIY with Dave at checkout, you'll also get a free bike cover. So check them out. You'll be glad you did. And thanks again to Electric e-bikes for sponsoring this video. All right, so as I mentioned, some retail companies have begun using surveillance pricing, in which They gather data and information on us, their customers, and determine through AI how much we would be willing to spend for something, and then they price it accordingly. Now, there's a lot of ways that they gather this data. Online, they may use your IP address, your location, and your browsing history. In stores, they're going to track your data using the cards you pay with. Or if you're part of a loyalty program, they can track you that way. It's kind of scary when you really think about it. It's enough to make you want to move out into the woods and live life off the grid.
So it learns information about me?
So what stores have actually implemented this kind of pricing? Well, that's really hard to say because there's no way for you to know what other people are seeing. Some people suspect that Walmart may be piloting it with those patents and tools and those price tags that they've installed everywhere. People have long suspected that Amazon may be using surveillance pricing and charging people maybe in different zip codes or different areas or based upon their purchase experience and their browsing history, different prices for different items. It's a lot easier to do online than it is to do in a store. But again, it's hard to know. It's hard to know who's actually charging different prices like that. So if you've seen it before, if you have seen a certain store using surveillance pricing like that, leave a comment and let us know who's doing it. So there is no public list that I'm aware of anyway, of companies that are using surveillance pricing. But at the end of the Biden administration, the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, sent an order to 8 companies to provide information about the data that they're gathering. Now, none of these companies are direct retailers, but rather companies that have gathered vast amounts of consumer data through their various business activities. And the FTC, at the end of the Biden administration, ordered that these companies disclose all surveillance pricing tools, algorithms, and software that they offered. They wanted to know how the tools worked, and they wanted to know what types of pricing outputs they generate. These companies were also ordered to provide a full accounting of all data used to power pricing tools, whether consumers were notified or consented of the data use, and they wanted to know whether third-party data brokers or partners were supplying data. And they also wanted to know any behavioral data inputs that were being used, things like browsing history or location, mouse movements, things like that. A few other things that they wanted to know about were customer lists. They wanted to know the top 10 customers by volume that each of these companies were serving. They wanted to know of prospective customer lists. They wanted to know how those customers were using the pricing tools. They wanted to know the industries or sectors that were using tools like that. And all of this was meant to understand how AI and personal data shape individualized pricing. And they wanted to evaluate whether consumers are being harmed and then decide whether rulemaking or enforcement is needed. So all of that was sent to these companies in July of 2024. So whatever became of that information in that investigation? Well, the preliminary findings were released on January 17th, 2025. That was 3 days before President Trump took office. In those preliminary findings, they concluded that companies do use personal data. They do use things like location, browsing history, purchase history, and demographics to set individualized prices. They also determined that these practices can raise prices for certain consumers and do ultimately increase company profits. One example that the FTC highlighted was instances of new parents being charged higher prices for urgent baby-related items, which to me is disgusting. I mean, I've got kids and, sometimes you need to buy some Tylenol. Sometimes you need to buy diapers and it's an emergency. And the thought of charging new parents more money for something that they really need is frankly disturbing in my view. That report went nowhere. The final results have not been released, and the new FTC chair appointed by President Trump called the preliminary report rushed and incomplete. And so it seems like they're not going to do anything with it. So here's what we know. Companies do use our data to set prices. And while that full report probably will never be released, we know from the preliminary report that surveillance pricing tools are being used at big box retailers, grocery chains, airlines, e-commerce platforms, subscription services, and banks. So how could you know if you're a victim of surveillance pricing? Well, there are a few different ways, but I should say that it is really hard because retailers don't disclose it, and the algorithms are designed to be invisible, and you don't see what someone else is seeing, you only see what you're seeing. But if you do see different prices on different devices, for example, or if prices increase when you come back to check on an item later, or if you see different prices from your friends and family or on their devices than on your own device, then you're probably a victim of surveillance pricing. So what can you do about it? Well, several states have introduced legislation to make surveillance pricing illegal, but none of that legislation has passed. And I also don't think that you can count on the federal government to make any rules to restrict it anytime soon either. The current administration is very pro-big business, and there's a lot of money behind stuff like this, things that can squeeze more money from customers and maximize profits without really any kind of incremental cost to the business. And so businesses are definitely going to be interested in continuing this practice, even if it harms customers. So again, what can you do about it? Well, I do have a list of things. You can opt out of data sharing when you're able to, when you're given that option. You can complain to the retailer when you do see something that looks like it could be surveillance pricing. You can use private browsing or a VPN. You could clear your cookies before checking out prices, especially on things like flights, hotels, or other high demand items. You could cancel loyalty programs and avoid giving out your information where possible. You can also shop at more reputable companies that don't do that surveillance pricing. I don't know exactly what those are because, again, it's difficult to know, but leave a comment. If you know of companies that are not doing surveillance pricing, if you work for a company where you manage pricing, or you know of companies that do surveillance pricing, leave a comment and let us know. Another thing you can do is you can also check pricing when you're logged in versus logged out of an account with a certain retailer, just to see if those prices are any different in one of those formats. So here's the thing though, none of those solutions are really that great. And unless there is some sort of regulation, big businesses are not going to stop doing something that brings them more money. They're not going to do it out of the goodness of their heart. They're going to keep doing it until someone forces them not to. Now, personally, I really hate the idea that I might be getting a different price for something than someone else. It just reeks of unfairness to me. And if we ever see a company that is using surveillance pricing, then we should speak up about it. We should make it public. Post to your social media. Let people know what you're seeing. Give those companies a bad reputation. They're not going to stop unless we make it too painful for them to continue doing it. So again, have you ever seen price discrepancies like this? Do you have any other suggestions on how we could protect ourselves from being victims of surveillance pricing? Leave a comment and let me know. As always, thanks for watching. It is funny because sometimes I get flack for videos like this. Now, this is a DIY channel after all, and I mostly talk about tools and lumber and projects and things like that. But I am a consumer. I do buy tools, I do buy things, and so I am interested in how much things cost. And if you are too, and you like this video and you felt that it was valuable, please let me know, so I know if this is the type of video that you may want to be seeing in the future. Also, feel free to forward it to somebody else who might find it interesting, and leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Again, thanks for watching. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.